Metal detectors can find a lot of gold, including big nuggets. Ever want to be a part of that? Metal detectors can be expensive and you don't want to buy the wrong one. So don't buy one until you've watched this video. I'm Chris Ralph, the professional prospector, and today we're talking about don't buy a metal detector until you watch this video. We're going to talk about 10 considerations that you need to think about before you buy so that you get the right detector and you don't waste a lot of money. I mean, literally, you can spend huge amounts of money buying a detector, and more than a few guys I know have spent big money buying a detector, and then after the fact, they kind of regret what they bought. Well, I wish I would have bought this other one. So you need to think about it first, and we're going to talk about those considerations that you need to make. If you watch this video, you'll save yourself time and money. Now, I get asked all the time, what detector should I buy? And honestly, I can't decide for you. There is no one detector that's the best overall, also the best and the cheapest and the superest and everything else. I'm sorry, they're all different and they all have various trade-offs that you have to make. And so what I want you to do is to make some considerations and think about it and decide for yourself what's best for you. You need to do research on the different kinds of detectors that are out there, the features that they offer, the prices that they sell at, and knowing the costs and understanding the kind of environments and places that you'll be detecting for gold. That'll really help you, and this guide will make sure that you buy the perfect detector for you. Now first, why even buy a detector at all? Nugget detecting is difficult to learn, and it takes a while to get the hang of it, but the potential for big finds is tremendous. But like I say, they can be expensive, and I mean really expensive. And accessories are costly on top of that. One of the first things I want you to understand is what a detector can do and what it can't do. Because I get a lot of questions of like, hey, I want a metal detector that will detect, I'm looking for a treasure and I want something that will detect 10 to 20 meters deep. So we're talking 30 to 60 feet. And basically the answer is there is no detector like that. Detectors are made to detect gold, or if you get a coin machine or a multi-purpose machine, coins and that kind of thing, generally at depths from the surface down to, you know, maybe a foot. And if you have something big, of course, you can dig something bigger. I've found big nuggets bigger than a foot deep, but you know, okay, maybe 18 inches, maybe 2 foot if you got something good sized, multi-ounces, right? So, you know, you're not going to be digging nuggets at 10 or 20 feet. That's crazy. You know, if you dig a 10-foot deep hole, you got danger of caving. You'll need a shoring to hold it up so that the hole doesn't cave in on you. And digging a 10-foot hole, it's not something you do in 5 or 10 minutes. You know, if you have a backhoe, it'd take you an hour. So one of the things I want you to understand is how deep your detector will go. And I have a video that I did totally on that topic, all the different complex things that go into how deep a detector will see. And again, it's like inches, a foot, maybe 2 feet, a really deep, really big target. You know, it's stuff like that, and you help you understand all the different factors. There is no one number that, you know, oh, this detector will do 7 inches, but this one will do 9. You know, there's no such thing as that. So the next thing I want you to think about is, what are you going to do with it? I mean, are you going to go out once in a while and look for gold? Are you going to hunt mostly in parks and schools for coins and lost jewelry, or maybe on beaches? You know, there's different things you can do with a metal detector. For me, I mostly do nugget detecting, but other guys do a multiple of different things. So you need to decide for yourself, what will I be doing with my metal detector? Do I want a multi-purpose detector? Do I want a detector that can do coins and discriminate well in the park and school, and at the same time go out and do some nuggets? Yes, there are detectors like that, but they're trade-offs, okay? Every choice you make, you know, on what you want to do. If you say, I'm just going to do nuggets, well, the trade-off is probably your machine isn't going to be a great machine for hunting coins at parks and schools. Then you say, well, I want a multi-purpose machine that hunts coins, you know, hunts gold, does everything. Well, there's compromises that you're making. So when you just do coins, or you do a multi-purpose machine, you're going to be losing some of the sensitivity. If you just get a coin machine, a machine that's designed maybe only as an afterthought, it says that it can do gold, that machine will only find larger pieces of gold. It won't be as sensitive, it won't be able to handle the bad ground mineralization as well. And so there's trade-offs in everything you do. You get a gold machine, you're not going to do so great at coins, and you get a multi-purpose machine, you're going to lose a little bit of the gold. You get a coin machine, you're going to lose a lot of the gold. So you need to know what you're going to do with it before you can make a decision. And every choice you make is filled with trade-offs. Because like I say, there is no one perfect machine that does everything perfectly. That's why manufacturers have multiple machines. If there was one perfect machine, every detector maker would only sell their one perfect machine. Why have others if there's only a perfect one? There is no perfect one. So you got to make choices and decide what you want. The next thing you need to do is decide on a budget. And coin machines are much cheaper. Generally speaking, the multi-purpose machines are a little cheaper, but the gold machines tend to be the most expensive. And you need to decide for yourself what your budget is. Can you afford a $4,000 machine? Can you only afford a $1,000 machine? Can you only afford a $300 machine? Well, you're going to need to think about this. And what I tell people is always get the best metal detector that you can afford for your budget. And you really should consider saving up for it. If you say, well, I could maybe afford $300, that would kind of crush my budget for the next month or two. Well, maybe you should just sit down and think about it and save money for 3-6 months, maybe more, and get an even better machine. And there's an advantage to that saving time, because it allows you the time to think about what's on the market, think about what choices you're going to make, decide what you want to do for yourself, what you're going to use your detector for, and maybe go to a gold club outing. Join a gold club in your area if you're not already a member. Go out, see other guys using their detectors, talk to them. Well, hey Joe, how do you like that detector you have? And he'll tell you his opinion. You may think it's the greatest thing since sliced bread. He may tell you, I wish I'd have bought something else. It's just like that. So by saving, you get to think more and fully consider your different options, and you'll have more money to, like I say, buy the best detector that you can afford to buy. Our next factor I want you to do is to know what's available. Get in there and find out what's available on the market. Like I say, everything is a trade-off. If you want to be good at that, well, it won't be so great at this. Even for gold nugget oriented machines that are, the engineers designed it with gold nugget detecting in mind. Even those machines have their trade-offs. You can get a VLF, which is less expensive and has much better discrimination, but you're going to find problems with hot rocks and mineralization. Now, maybe your area doesn't have that bad a problem with hot rocks and mineralization. Maybe it does. And maybe if you buy a VLF machine and then you go out there, the hot rocks and the mineralization is just going to drive you nuts. So then you say, well, I'll buy a pulse induction machine. Well, the pulse induction machine will glide over those hot rocks and ground mineralization, and it will ignore the vast majority of them. Not all. Sometimes there's hot rocks so screamingly hot that even your pulse induction machine will find those hot rocks. But the disadvantage of a pulse induction machine is you'll have either no discrimination or discrimination that doesn't work that great, but it's okay maybe. So you have less discrimination, a lot more money spent, but you'll be able to ignore hot rocks, and in some cases you'll be able to see targets deeper. You also give up the smallest gold with a pulse induction machine. So the tiniest gold, you need a VLF to see that really tiny stuff. But for bigger stuff, and maybe bigger stuff down a little bit deeper, you're better off with a pulse induction machine, but again, a lot more expensive, generally speaking. The next of our considerations is to avoid Chinese knockoff detectors, period. End of sentence. Look, there's some Chinese detectors that work sort of okay, not very well, but maybe they're okay for coins and things in parks, because generally speaking, a coin is like a nickel. Let's just use a nickel as an example, a US nickel. US nickel is roughly equivalent to a 1/4 ounce nugget. And so, you know, they're designed to see things that kind of scale. But yet, you know, I've found lots of nuggets, many much bigger than a 1/4 of an ounce. But the thing is, the vast majority of the gold I find is in number of nuggets have been things a lot smaller than a 1/4 of an ounce. More like most of the nuggets I find are maybe a gram, gram and a half and down. You know, 1/2 gram, a 1/4 of a gram, you know, 3/4 of a gram. That kind of thing is the bulk of the nuggets that I find with my detector. So you don't want to give up the big targets like that. The same reason you don't want to buy a coin-only cheap machine. But the problem with Chinese knockoff detectors is they make detectors that look exactly like the real thing. They will, you know, say Minelab or Garrett or whatever, Fisher, right on the detector, because China doesn't have the same copyright laws that we do in the United States or in Europe or most other developed nations, Australia, that you can cheat the codes and really nobody's gonna wink it. And so they tell you, well, you know, first of all, they won't tell you this is a Chinese fake detector. But they tell you, look, we have some that are for sale much cheaper. And I was in Africa, and in Africa, although they may have laws concerning copyright protection, they did not get enforced the same way. So I met a guy when I was traveling in Africa who had purchased a Minelab detector, which at those days, those things were selling for, you know, 4,000 US. And he had actually gone into a Minelab dealer and talked to the guy, because I was with a Minelab dealer, and the Minelab dealer actually remembered talking to this customer. But he said, you didn't buy from me. And the guy kind of hung his head. He wanted us to check his detector out. Well, I looked at it, it looked every bit just like, I mean, the Chinese had totally copied this thing down to the last detail. But it basically didn't work. You turned it on, and I actually, to test it, I took my cell phone, which I have a big cell phone, and although this is not the cell phone I had way back then, I had a cell phone the same size. It's got a giant metal battery in it, and a metal frame that it basically is built on. Loads of metal in the cell phone. And I swung the cell phone over his coil. Total silence. Nothing. So, you know, it basically is a detector that looks exactly like the real thing, but it totally is non-functional. I've also heard of ones that are marginally functional. So like you spend big money to buy a real good pulse induction machine, and you get basically the equivalent of a $75 VLF. You know, that's the guts you have on the inside. So then at least, you know, the guy who's selling you this could run a big piece of metal over the coil, and sure enough, a giant piece of metal is going to set the detector off. So avoid the Chinese knockoffs, and that's why I say buy from a reputable dealer. And I'll repeat this, but buy from somebody who's reputable, who, you know, if you have a problem, you're not going to get stuck with it. So avoid those Chinese knockoffs at all cost. Now, new metal detectors is better, but buying used can save you a lot of money. And like I say, when you're on a budget, you know, having a detector that costs a little bit less money can be a good thing. Too many guys get into nugget detecting. They're very enthusiastic. They're going to get out and find loads of gold. And they go out a couple of times and they find a load of trash, and they just give up. Okay, the metal detector, and their enthusiasm evaporates. Their metal detector goes into the closet, and the metal detector in a closet can gather only dust. And so they kind of give up, and maybe a year or so later they decide, well, I'm just going to sell this thing. Even though I spent $4,000 on it, maybe I can get $2,500 back out of it, because I don't like doing metal detecting for nuggets. It's a shame, because if they'd spent more time, put more effort into it, and learned it better, they could have been successful. And I will tell you that you can find a lot of gold with a metal detector, but it's a lot of work to learn how to do it and learn this. It's a skill. And just like if you decide to take up golfing, you're not going to go golfing, buy a great set of golf clubs, go out golfing once or twice, and then say, okay, well, I'm not almost at a pro level yet, so I give up. And anyway, sometimes you can get golf clubs cheap that same way. But you find that there's used ones on the market. It's a little bit more work to find them, because you can go to a dealer and buy whatever, brand new out of the box. But finding a used one, it takes a little bit more work. Again, don't rush. What you want to do is, if you buy a used one, make sure that you see it work. You test it out, and don't test it out with a giant object. Test it out with something small, a little bit of lead or something other small, smaller than a coin. Okay, and don't make it steel or iron. Make it small and test it out and see that it works. See that it's fully functional before you buy. I've heard of some stories where guys who bought these cheap Chinese knockoffs, they went and found out that they don't work, and then they put them back up on the markets and put them for a good price. Hey, this $4,000 detector, it's only $1,500. And you think, well, gee, hey, there's a great bargain. And you go over there, and the guy says, well, it's broken. I never really sent it back to the manufacturer for repair. So, you can send it back to the manufacturer. I'm giving you an extra $1,000 off, and it might cost you $200 to get it repaired, but I'm knocking $1,000 off. So you're in great shape if you take this detector. Well, what happens is you buy the detector, you pay the money, you send it to the manufacturer. The manufacturer opens it up, looks in there, sees that the guts are not their stuff, looks at the detector and says, yeah, this is one of those cheap Chinese knockoff things, and sends it back to you and says, oh, we can't repair this. It's not repairable. Basically, the guts are not our guts. The outside looks right, but the inside is not at all right. So be careful with when you buy used. You want to see the thing work. You want to test it. Next is buying from someone reputable. Now, some dealers offer training. When you purchase a metal detector from them, they'll actually take you out. Now, you have to travel to them. So if your dealer's in Arizona, you'll have to travel to Arizona. But if you live in Arizona, that's great. If you're someplace else and you buy a dealer from them, you'll get training. If you live in Idaho, there's a dealer in Idaho that offers training. Think about that. Getting from someone reputable, you'll know that you're not buying a used piece of junk. You're not buying something that won't be repaired by the manufacturer. You'll buy something that the dealer stands by. Generally, eBay is not a good place to buy a detector. There can be reputable guys on there sometimes, but there's a whole lot of people that literally will take a picture of a metal detector from some other ad, say, hey, this metal detector, it's for sale, send me $1,000 or send me $2,000 or $5,000 or whatever, and I'll send you this metal detector. And you think, oh, okay, good, I'll send you the money, and the people just disappear. They take your money and disappear. So you don't want to have something like that happen to you. Make sure that the person you're going to buy from is a reputable person, that especially that you can see in person and deal with directly. Next, I want to talk to you about reading the manual and practicing with your detector. A lot of guys will buy a detector, maybe they'll put it together at their house, okay, and then they take it out in the field for their first trip, and surprise, surprise, they don't actually already know how to work it. It's not just like you turn it on and start going looking for things to beep. It's a little more complex than that. So you need to read the manual and practice with it at your house. Get familiar with it, get handy with it, get to where you know the different settings and what you want it to run on and what seems best to you. And like I say, consider getting training. Some of the dealers that you buy from them, they'll give you training, and they'll give you training if you pay the money. Now, I want to be super duper clear on this. I don't offer training. I do get people all the time asking me, hey Chris, will you take me out and do metal detecting with me? Hey, will you show me how to use my detector? Hey, I'm not a dealer. I'm not looking to sell metal detectors. I'm a prospector like you. And I don't offer training. I get so many requests for so many people that want me to help them with different projects. I could make a 40-hour-a-week job like that just out of the things that people ask me to do. I don't want to do that. So just to be super clear, I don't offer training. But what I do offer is all my videos. I've got a gob of videos some on different specific detectors, some on how to choose the best detector for you, various other things, how to, secrets of metal detecting, like, what you want to do in the field. You want to keep your coil close to the ground. You want to listen for faint signals. There's all kinds of things that I do a whole video just on. How deep will your detector go? I already linked to that one. But I've got gobs of them. I've got quite a few. And I made a playlist. And I'm going to put a link to that playlist right up here above me. And you're going to be able to link to that. Click on the link. I'll also put a link down in the description below. But you can link up here and it'll take you to that playlist. And you can select different videos that you want to watch. And you can binge watch. There's hours and hours of training. So although I don't give personal individual training out in the field, basically I give the equivalent of training on my videos. So if you watch the videos and buy my book, that's another thing, is I've got a book also about processing. We'll talk about that a little more later. But between watching the videos, reading the book, and the rest of it, you'll be in pretty good shape. And then learning how your detector operates and how you want to run it. Number 9, I want you to know that it takes time to learn. It's a skill. And just like, if you wanted to be a plumber or an electrician, you don't learn that in 5 minutes. If you want to be an expert golfer, you're not going to learn that in half an hour. It takes time to learn. It's a skill. And real skills are not learned in 5 minutes. A lot of guys get really excited about the idea of finding gold, and then that's a good thing. Gold fever, it's real. But you got to be accepting that it takes time to learn any skill and effort and work. And you got to accept that to be true. A lot of guys, and this happened to me when I was working a full-time job, 8 to 5. I didn't get out to prospect very often. I'd been doing it for decades, but, a few days here, a few days there, and, less than 10 days in an entire year. If you got a lot of things going on in your life and you don't get out very often, it's going to take you a little longer to learn. You're not going to just walk out there after 1 or 2 sessions and just be hitting nuggets everywhere. If your expectation is to strike it rich immediately, I'm sorry, you're going to be disappointed. You're 150 years too late. So have an attitude in advance that you're never going to give up, you're never going to surrender, you're going to do what it takes to be successful at finding gold nuggets with your metal detector. And I tell you, if you hold on to that attitude and work at it, you will be successful. Another thing about that is enjoy the ride, okay? If you're interested in finding gold and that's 100% of all you care about, you may have a little bit harder time. If you are willing to say, hey, I'm really going to work hard at finding gold, but I'm going to enjoy getting out in the wilderness, whether it be the desert or the mountains or wherever I'm out. I'm just going to enjoy myself. I'm going to have a good time. I'm going to, really enjoy getting away. And then that'll make it a little bit easier for you, because if you enjoy what you're doing, then the gold is almost a bonus. If the gold is the only thing and you wish you weren't there, you wish you were someplace else, and you're going to give up. So never give up, never surrender, enjoy the ride. And what kind of goes with that is number 10, you need to be able to get out and use it. If a lot of guys I get contacted by saying, hey, I'm going to retire in the next 6 months or a year, and I want to get into nugget detecting. Great, that's a good thing. I got to admit that since I've left 8 to 5 work, I get out 20 times more prospecting than I did especially when I was working an 8 to 5 job and I had kids and, I was responsible for the house and our income and everything else. And so, I love my wife and I love my kids, but now that the kids are on their own, I have a lot more free time to go out and do prospecting and enjoy myself and have fun with that kind of stuff. I do want to tell you though that most guys, it does take weeks or months, sometimes even a year to find that first nugget. It depends on, how often you get out, where you're detecting, how much you know about prospecting. When I first took up metal detecting for nuggets, I'd already been panning for gold and sluicing and sniping and doing all kinds of other stuff for gold for decades. And so learning about where gold is found and where the gold gets deposited and where you're likely to find it, that was already old hat. And so I just needed to adapt the skills of the metal detector to that knowledge. For a lot of you guys that are new, you need to get that knowledge and the skills of the metal detector, knowing how to work it. But a lot of folks have had great success metal detecting for nuggets, and if you work at it and you're committed to it and you don't give up and surrender, you can have that same level of success yourself. But like I say, we're about 150 years too late for the gold rush. The easy gold was got by the old timers, and now it takes a little bit more work to find it, a little bit more work to get it. Of course, the old timers never had a tool like a metal detector, so we have that advantage on them. But it's still, there have been people working for gold for a long time. And so nowadays it takes knowledge and skill to be successful at finding nuggets. And that is why I wrote a book, because it makes all the difference in the world what you know. My book is basically an encyclopedia of prospecting with a little bit of geology, a little bit of metal detectors, a little bit of how gold deposits and all kinds of related stuff. It's basically an encyclopedia of gold finding. And I'm going to tell you a little bit more about my book right now. So let me tell you a little bit more about my book. It's called Fistful of Gold. And I wrote it because I want you to be able to go out and find for yourself fistful of gold. And you can see that it's an encyclopedia with all kinds of information, pictures, and that sort of thing. It's not in color, but color would have cost me a lot more to have printed, and so the book would have cost a lot more. It's for sale on Amazon, and you can pick it up. I'll put a link in the description below. I also serve as the editor for a prospecting magazine. It's ICMJ's Prospecting and Mining Journal. And honestly, you should check that out. We got stories and information, legal stuff, everything you know to increase your skills as a prospector. I write articles in this every month, and a lot of other very experienced prospectors contribute to the magazine as well. So check the magazine out. Also, I have a website, and the website is at NevadaOutbackGems.com. I'll put a link for it in the description below, but there's gobs of information there that you will find useful in your prospecting efforts. Finally, I want to say that I really appreciate your comments and thoughts, and even positive criticism. Don't come on there and just toss out insults, because I'll just delete your comments. But if you've got helpful things to say and questions to ask, do write and put those in the comments, because I answer my comments to people, and you'll hear from me in responding to you. So if you've enjoyed this video and you like what you see and you're interested in finding out more, well then sign up, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so they'll let you know when I post new videos. And like it and share it if again you see stuff that you really are excited about. And I'll be coming out with lots more new videos, and so we'll see you again real soon.